I am Liz Rose, a relationship expert, author, and researcher of emotional dynamics between men and women. For years, I have studied attraction, male behavior, emotional intelligence, and the patterns that bring people together or drive them apart. Today, I want to share with you what I've learned through my research, my professional experience, and the thousands of stories I've encountered throughout my journey. Let me ask you something that might completely change how you think about texting men forever. What if I told you that the reason your last 3 relationships fizzled out had nothing to do with your looks, your personality, or even your compatibility? What if it had everything to do with 6 specific words you never learned to use? It sounds impossible, right? But here is what most women do not realize. While you are crafting the perfect paragraph, overthinking every emoji, and analyzing his response time, there are 6 simple words that bypass all of that noise. They speak directly to the primal part of his brain that controls desire, obsession, and the unstoppable need to chase. I am not talking about playing games. I am not talking about manipulation. I am talking about understanding something so fundamental about male psychology that once you finally get it, you will wonder how you ever dated without knowing this. Most dating advice tells you to be yourself, communicate openly, and build emotional connection. And while those things matter eventually, they completely miss the crucial first step. Before a man can fall in love with who you are, his brain has to be triggered into chase mode. That happens through very specific psychological triggers, the same ones most women accidentally destroy with their texting habits. In this video, I am going to reveal 6 words that, when used correctly, create an almost magnetic pull in his mind. These are not just any words. I have chosen them based on years of observing male attraction patterns up close. When you send them at exactly the right moment, something fascinating happens. His brain releases a rush of feeling that makes him feel like he has discovered something rare and valuable. Suddenly, you are not just another name in his phone. You become the mystery he needs to solve, the challenge he wants to conquer, and the woman he cannot stop thinking about. But here is the catch. If you use these words wrong or at the wrong time, they can backfire completely. That is why understanding the psychology behind them is not just helpful. It is essential. Once you know how his mind processes desire, you will never have to wonder where you stand again. You will never have to analyze mixed signals or decode confusing responses. Instead, you will know exactly how to trigger his pursuit instinct and watch him start doing the work to win you over. So, if you have ever felt like you are always the one initiating, always wondering if he is really interested, or always questioning why he seems to lose interest just when things were getting good, pay attention. Because after today, you are going to understand something most women never figure out. The secret is not in being more available, more understanding, or more accommodating. The secret is in knowing exactly which psychological buttons to press to make his brain light up with desire. Ready? Let us start with the foundation, because if you do not understand why these 6 words work, you might use them at exactly the wrong moment and wonder why nothing changed. Here is what every woman needs to know about how a man's brain processes attraction through text. Before I reveal the first 2 words that completely flip the script in your favor, you need to understand something crucial about how men experience attraction differently than women do. If you approach texting him the same way you would want to be texted, you are essentially speaking a foreign language to his brain. That is where most women lose him before they even realize the game has begun. Here is the truth I have learned through years of studying this dynamic. Men do not fall in love through emotional connection first. They fall in love through intrigue, mystery, and the reward of earning something they perceive as valuable. When women text from a place of pure connection and sharing, they accidentally remove the very thing that triggers his chase instinct. His brain is wired to pursue what feels slightly out of reach, to solve puzzles, and to work for rewards that feel meaningful. Think about it this way. When something is handed to you for free, your brain assigns it less value than something you had to work for. This is not conscious or deliberate. It is simply how the human reward system functions. And men, especially when it comes to romantic pursuit, are wired to find meaning and excitement in the chase itself. When you remove that element by being too available, too explanatory, or too emotionally open too quickly, you are inadvertently signaling that there is no challenge here. This is why the 6 words I am about to share with you are so powerful. They do not just communicate information. They create what I call cognitive tension in his mind. They make him curious, slightly confused, and emotionally activated all at once. When his brain receives a message that creates this kind of tension, it releases a craving for resolution. Suddenly, resolving that tension becomes a priority. And the only way to resolve it is by engaging more deeply with you. But here is what makes this even more effective. These words do not just create curiosity. They position you as someone who understands something he does not, someone who has access to experiences or perspectives that intrigue him. In his mind, you become the person who might unlock something new and exciting in his life. That psychological positioning is incredibly attractive to the male brain. The mistake most women make is trying to build attraction through comfort and familiarity. They text about their day, ask about his work, and try to create closeness through shared information. But for most men, comfort kills curiosity. And without curiosity, there is no chase. That is why these 6 words work like magic. They maintain mystery while creating connection. They spark interest while leaving room for imagination. And they position you as the prize rather than the pursuer. Now that you understand the psychology, you are ready for the first 2 words that immediately shift the dynamic in your favor. I guarantee that once you see how simple this is, you will be amazed that something so basic can be so powerful. Here they are, the first 2 words that instantly change everything about how he perceives you through text. I'm curious. I know what you are thinking. How can 2 simple words have that much power? But here is the secret. When you say, I'm curious, you are doing something most women never do. You are positioning yourself as the one with questions, not answers. You are becoming the investigator, not the one being investigated. Psychologically, that completely flips the power dynamic. Most women text from a position of seeking validation or connection. They ask about his day, share details about their own experiences, or try to keep the conversation flowing through familiar topics. But when you lead with, I'm curious, you immediately establish yourself as someone who's observing, evaluating, and trying to figure him out. And that triggers something deep in the male's psyche. Suddenly, he is the one being studied, analyzed, and potentially judged worthy or unworthy of your interest. For example, instead of texting, how was your day? You might text, I'm curious what you're like when you're completely in your element. Or instead of, what are you up to tonight? You could send, I'm curious if you're the type who plans everything or just wings it. Nou mas dauistralderend. Do you feel the difference? In the first examples, you are seeking information to continue a conversation. In the second examples, you are positioning yourself as someone trying to understand something specific and intriguing about him. This works because it activates something I call the introspection effect. When someone says they are curious about us, our brain automatically starts reflecting on the question being posed. He is not just reading your text and moving on. He is actually thinking about himself in relation to your curiosity, considering how to present himself, what impression he wants to make, and how to satisfy your interest. All of that mental activity creates investment. But here is the key. The power is not just in saying, I'm curious. It is in what you are curious about. You want to be curious about aspects of his personality, his preferences, or his character. Things he might not get asked about often. Things that make him reflect on who he is, rather than just what he does. When you do this right, he starts seeing you as someone who notices things others miss, someone interested in the deeper layers of who he is. Timing matters too. These words work best when there has already been some interaction, maybe some playful back and forth, but you want to deepen the connection without seeming needy or invasive. I'm curious gives you permission to ask more personal questions while maintaining an air of detached interest. You are not fishing for compliments or seeking reassurance. You are genuinely intrigued, and that confidence is incredibly attractive. But I'm curious is just the beginning. It opens the door and shifts the dynamic. The next two words are what pull him through that door and make him start working to impress you. Because if the first two words make him think, the next two words make him want to prove himself. And once a man starts trying to prove himself to you, the chase has officially begun. Now that you have got his attention with your curiosity, it is time to activate something even deeper. The third and fourth words are what transform initial interest into genuine pursuit. These words tap into one of the strongest psychological drives in the male brain. Ready? The words are, I bet. Before you dismiss this as too simple, let me explain why these two words are pure psychological gold. When you say, I bet, you are not just making a statement. You are issuing a subtle challenge, and men are wired to respond to challenges, especially when they come from someone they are attracted to. It triggers their competitive instinct, their desire to prove themselves, and their need to demonstrate their capabilities. Here is how it works in his brain. The moment you text, I bet you're the type who, or I bet you've never, his mind immediately starts formulating a response. But it is not just any response. He is thinking about how to show you that you are either exactly right in an impressive way or completely wrong in a way that reveals something interesting about him. Either way, he is mentally engaged and emotionally invested in the outcome. For example, you might text, I bet you're terrible at cooking, but somehow convinced everyone you're good at it. Or, I bet you have a secret talent you never tell people about on first dates. Can you see what is happening here? You are not asking direct questions that feel like an interview. You are making playful assumptions that invite him to either confirm your intuition or surprise you with the truth. And both outcomes make him look interesting. This works because of something I have observed time and again in how people respond to perception. When someone makes a prediction about us, especially someone we want to impress, we feel compelled to either live up to that prediction or exceed it. If you bet he is adventurous, he is going to want to prove just how adventurous he really is. If you bet he is probably traditional in some unexpected way, he is going to want to show you the traditional side you somehow detected. Either way, he is working to align with or surpass your perception of him. But here is the brilliance of using I bet. It positions you as someone observant, intuitive, and confident enough to make assumptions about people. In his mind, you become the person who sees things others miss, who understands people on a deeper level. And that kind of insight is incredibly attractive to men because it suggests you might understand him in ways others have not. The key is in how you frame your bets. You want them specific enough to show you have been paying attention, but open enough to let him surprise you. And you want them to focus on positive or intriguing traits rather than negative ones. The goal is not to challenge him to prove you wrong. It is to challenge him to show you more of who he is. Timing is crucial here too. I bet works best when you have already established some rapport, but want to deepen the connection without being too direct or vulnerable. It lets you probe deeper into his personality while maintaining a playful, confident energy. You are not seeking validation or trying too hard to connect. You are simply making an observation based on your own keen understanding of people, and that confidence is magnetic. When you combine all 6 words strategically, the effect is incredible. You might send something like, Nan sells in near I'm curious about something. I bet you're the type who would completely surprise me if I asked you to plan the most unconventional date you could think of. Would you? This single text accomplishes everything. It shows curiosity about who he is. It challenges his creativity and planning skills. It positions you as someone who appreciates unconventional thinking, and it invites him into an exciting possibility. What happens in his mind when he receives a message like this is fascinating. First, his curiosity is piqued about what you are wondering. Then he considers whether he really is the type of person who could surprise you with creative planning. Finally, he starts imagining what kind of unconventional date he could create and how impressed you would be if he pulled it off. By the time he has finished processing your message, he is already emotionally invested in proving himself to you. The beauty of these 6 words is that they work together to create a complete psychological experience. I'm curious positions you as the investigator. I bet shows your confidence in reading people. Would you invites him into action. Used correctly, they make him see you as mysterious, confident, and full of potential for exciting experiences. That combination is what triggers the chase instinct in ways that direct questions and emotional sharing simply cannot. But knowing the words is only half the battle. The other half is understanding exactly when and how to use them to maximize their impact. Because even the most powerful psychological triggers can backfire if the timing is wrong. Before you start using these 6 powerful words, I need you to understand something crucial. Even the most psychologically effective words in the world will not work if you are making certain fundamental mistakes that instantly kill attraction. These are the texting errors that silently sabotage your efforts, push him away, and make it almost impossible for him to chase you, no matter how much potential existed in the beginning. The first major mistake is what I call emotional flooding. This happens when you send long paragraphs explaining your feelings, your day, or your thoughts about the relationship. While this might feel natural and connecting to you, it overwhelms his brain's processing system. Men typically compartmentalize information, and when they receive a wall of emotional text, their instinct is often to step back rather than engage more deeply. Instead of creating connection, you are accidentally creating pressure. The second mistake is predictable timing patterns. If you always text him good morning, always respond within 5 minutes, or always initiate conversations at the same time each day, you are removing the element of surprise that keeps his brain engaged. Predictability equals safety to his subconscious, and safety does not trigger pursuit. You need to maintain some variability in your communication patterns to keep his mind anticipating and wondering about you. Another critical error is what I call interview mode. This is when you ask question after question, trying to keep the conversation going. How was work? What are you doing tonight? How's your week going? These questions do not create any emotional charge or intrigue. They are conversation fillers that make you blend in with everyone else trying to maintain his attention. Remember, you want to stand out, not fit in. And here is a big one that most women do not realize they are doing. Using these 6 words too frequently or in every conversation diminishes their power completely. Their effectiveness comes from scarcity and strategic timing. If every text you send includes "I'm curious" or "I bet," they become white noise instead of attention grabbers. The key is to use them sparingly at moments when you want to create a specific psychological effect. The biggest mistake of all is not giving him space to miss you. If you are always available, always responsive, and always ready to engage, you are removing one of the most powerful attraction triggers that exists. The brain craves what it does not have constant access to. If he knows you will always respond, always be interested, and always make time for him, there is nothing left for him to work toward or wonder about. Understanding these mistakes is just as important as knowing the right words to use. Attraction is not just about what you do. It is also about what you avoid doing wrong. When you combine the psychological power of the 6 words with the strategic awareness of these common pitfalls, you create an irresistible combination that makes chasing you feel natural and inevitable for him. But there is still one more layer to master. It is not enough to know the words and avoid the mistakes. You also need to understand how to keep him emotionally hooked long-term, so he does not just chase you initially and then lose interest once the novelty wears off. Here is what most women do not realize. Men do not lose interest because they get bored with you as a person. They lose interest when they feel like they have figured you out completely, when there are no more layers to discover, no more mysteries to solve. The brain is designed to seek novelty and challenge. And when those elements disappear from a relationship, so does the chemical rush that fuels attraction and pursuit. Here is what I want you to do right now. Pick just one of these word combinations and try it out today. Start with whichever one feels most natural to your personality and current situation. Maybe it is being curious about something specific you have noticed about him. Maybe it is making a playful bet about what kind of person he is in certain situations. Or maybe it is inviting him into a possibility that aligns with something you have learned about his interests or values. Test it out and pay attention to how his energy shifts in response. Notice whether he becomes more engaged, asks more questions, or starts putting more effort into his replies. Most importantly, observe how it feels for you to communicate from this position of confident curiosity rather than seeking validation or trying to maintain his interest through availability and accommodation. The women who master this approach do not just get better responses to their texts. They transform their entire dating experience. They stop wondering where they stand because they know how to create clarity through their communication style. They stop overanalyzing mixed signals because they understand how to generate consistent interest. And they stop feeling like they are always the one putting in more effort because they know how to inspire him to pursue them naturally. This is not about changing who you are. It is about expressing who you are in a way that speaks to how his brain processes attraction, desire, and connection. When you communicate with this level of psychological awareness, everything becomes easier. The right men are drawn to you more quickly. Relationships develop more naturally, and you never have to wonder whether someone is truly interested in you. Remember, attraction is not random or mysterious. It is predictable, and it is psychological. And now that you understand how it works, you have the power to create it consistently with the right person. Use these 6 words wisely. Avoid the common mistakes that kill attraction. And watch how dramatically your dating life transforms when you finally know how to make his brain work for you instead of against you.